Welcome to 4-H Shooting Sports, shooting better scientifically, where we've taken the research around the thriving model and put the science and the magic together to help you create a thriving 4-H shooting sports program. Chandra, what is something that we're going to be learning about or covering tonight?
We are excited to be covering openness to challenge and discovery this evening. And so what we would expect to see are youth identifying a step that they can take to grow their skills. We would like to see them reflect one or two steps that they have already taken that helped them succeed in their project so far. And we would love to see youth make future steps in how to challenge themselves to grow towards a goal.
One of the things I love about the like to see is there's some famous people. One of them was a past 4-H'er, Janet Schweitzer, that said success leaves clues. And so if they can identify what's already helped them be successful, I think that creates a really strong, well-rounded youth. Hi, I'm Tammy Stewart. I am a 4-H volunteer with Nebraska 4-H. And we also have co-hosting.
And I am Chandra Plate, and I am for shooting sports specialist for the state of Kansas and a level 3 coordinator trainer with Tammy.
Yay! And we have moderating for us tonight, the National 4-H Shooting Sports Coordinator, Mr. Scott Stewart. Thanks for being here with us.
Glad I can assist and help.
And just so you know, we're all about the life skills in 4-H. Whoa, going fast on me. And we do have 3 life skills that are incorporated into the lesson plan we will be unveiling tonight. And as we think about those life skills, we love to have you answer a question in the chat. What was a challenge you took on that made you better at your 4-H shooting sports role? So type that in the chat or raise your hand if you want to answer. Chandra, while they're answering, what about you?
So a challenge that I was able to take on that made me better at my role was I said yes to becoming a level 2 coordinator trainer and then a yes to becoming a level 3.
Which puts you here tonight.
And Tammy, what was your challenge?
Oh, my big challenge that I took on is when I was asked to help rewrite the coordinator curriculum. I wasn't for sure I was ready for that big of a step, especially at the national stage, but I am so glad I said yes to Dr. David White out of Oregon when he asked. That made me better because it really made me focus on the end result. So even like doing tonight's program, I'm always thinking about in the end, what do we want from our youth, from our instructors? So what are we seeing in the chat, Scott?
We have taking on the club as a head advisor. Yep, that is a challenge. Congratulations for doing that. Taking the level 2 coordinator training, becoming a state instructor. Oh, becoming a county coordinator and assistant coordinator for the state program, says Susan.
Oh.
Wow. That's awesome.
Awesome. So as you look at the thriving model here, you'll notice that we already have our developmental context. We found that spark in shooting sports. The youth are belonging in our clubs and with our groups that we have. They're forming relationships with you and with others, and you have them engaged. So now we're at the STEM part of the thriving model. We covered growth mindset last time, and tonight is all about that openness to challenge and discovery and a lesson plan that will help you be able to do that. So when I look at this, one of my favorite parts of the science behind is that 4th bullet point where somebody would say no normally, but we teach them to say not yet. And I love that phrase, not yet. Chandra, when you look at this science, which of these stands out to you?
My favorite one is to teach youth to support each other when they're learning challenging things, because that extra boost from a peer or an older youth really helps encourage the youth to continue taking steps forward and progressing.
And one of the things when we look at that top bullet point about small but steady steps, keep in mind that as you're coaching on this lesson plan tonight, when you take it back to your club, that small steps, like if you have a bunch of small steps, it becomes tedious and like, do I have to take all of these steps? And it creates boredom. And if you have steps that are either too wide or too big for the young person or even us adults, then it becomes a whole level of frustration that we shut down and don't keep with the challenge and don't keep with the discoveries that that challenge brings. So those small steady steps, I like that a lot. And you'll see that in our lesson plan. So Chandra, tonight we always tell the young people what they're going to be able to do, tune their bodies into, what they're going to be able to learn to tune their brains into. So what will this lesson plan cover tonight?
So what they're going to do is they're going to be able to identify steps that would help them reach a goal. So we have a worksheet that has a staircase on it, and you will see that here shortly. And they will be able to identify the steps that will help them reach a goal. They're also going to learn how to be open in challenges and discoveries to reach that goal, because we have to be open to learning new things in order to reach our goals.
If we've set appropriate goals, right?
That is very correct.
So when we talk about the life skills, we talk about them being part of the head, heart, hands, or health when we say the 4-H pledge. So critical thinking comes from the head. And obviously my slides are having a lot of fun with me tonight. And so we really want young people deciding what to do or believe, and the meaning of like, why would you do these stair steps tonight? Our next life skill, Chandra, whoops,
is planning and organizing. So we want them to be able to plan how they're going to take those steps so that they have a logical sequence, and that they are they're not too hard, but they're not too easy as well.
awesome, thank you. Now we're finally ready for self-motivation. I was kind of surprised when I realized that this one worked really well with tonight, that it came from the hands. But yeah, motivation is all about putting into action and effort. And so when they make their stair steps during your practice time, they're going to need not to just make them, but to actually take action on them. And that's where the self-motivation comes in. But we're ready to show you the lesson now. We learned something and are self-motivated to improve. And so last time, one of the things you told us was you would like to see the lesson plan to increase your confidence. So you are seeing the actual verbiage from the lesson plan as Chandra and I enact it. I will serve as Coach Tammy tonight. And who will you be, ma'am?
Will be Chandra, a 8-year-old 4-H'er who is taking BB gun as a 4-H project.
And we will be showing you some examples of how you can also use this with older youth, even though we're running it through a beginning level. So here we go. I'm Coach Tammy. When you climb steps, where do you start?
Well, you start at the bottom of the steps.
And why do you start at the bottom?
Because that's where you have to start to get up steps.
Okay. When you started in 4-H shooting sports, what was a couple of the first steps you took?
Well, I think the first step I took was I joined 4-H and signed up for BB gun as a 4-H project.
That's a great first step. So at our club time, you are going to identify some steps that would help you reach a goal you have in your 4-H shooting sports project, BB gun. And you are going to learn how to be open to new challenges and discoveries to reach your goal. This is the worksheet that you would hand out at this time to the young people. You mentioned some steps you took when you started in 4-H shooting sports. Take this worksheet and fill in a couple of those first steps. Okay. What do you see in your first step, Chandra?
So in step 1, I joined 4-H shooting sports BB gun project. And the second step I took was I learned how to shoot my BB gun safely.
Thank you for sharing that. So I want you to look at step 3. What is one thing you are challenging yourself on now? And write it in the box for step 3. So what would that be?
I'd really like to hit the target closer to the bullseye.
Awesome. And at the top of the steps, so we're going to skip step 4 and 5, go right to the top where it says goal. Write down a goal you want to accomplish in 4-H shooting sports. What would that be, Chandra?
I want to compete in BB gun at the county fair.
That is awesome. Now that you've written down the goal to compete at the county fair in BB gun, and steps 4 and 5, you're going to write down the different things you need to challenge yourself on or discover to meet that goal. So what would your next step look like to meet your goal to compete at county fair?
I think I'd have to practice a lot more. So maybe I would practice at home 4 days a week and with my club once a week.
Great. So now that you've figured out how often you need to practice, what would your next step be after that?
I probably need to know how to score my targets for each position that I do in BB gun.
All right. Those are perfect steps to work on to reach your goal of competing at the county fair. Thanks for writing those down. So we're going to take a little break from this role playing that Chandra and I are doing right now and show you what this might look like if you were doing this like with older teen in the shotgun program. So you obviously would have them start of where they came from. So we talked to in this one, maybe it's a state that primarily shoots sporting clays. So of course they did that. They took some lessons on trap, and then they set that goal to represent their state at the national championships in shotgun. So what are they doing now to expand? They're watching videos on skeet. And then of course they'll need to practice both of those discipline or games that they're not used to. And then figure out a way to qualify, right, for their state for to represent their state at the championships. So this is what it might look like for a shotgun example. But what about somebody that doesn't want to compete? They're really into the leadership and the life skills. This is what an ambassador might look like, somebody that sets that goal to represent their state at the Youth Leadership Ambassador Training. What's the official name of that, Chandra?
Youth Leadership Institute.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And so here they're going to say that they coached younger youth in their program. They help instruct, especially the safety lessons, something maybe they don't have to be certified in to instruct. And then they signed up to earn their apprenticeship so they could do some more official instruction. And then they're given a speech to their club, right, to practice those things to put on their application. And then, of course, step 5 is to apply to be an ambassador for their state. So again, with all of this, remember my favorite earlier science was saying, not yet. So are you an ambassador? They could say no, or they could say, are you an ambassador? And say, not yet, but I'm working on it. So I want you to think about how you would incorporate that phrase of not yet, or not yet, but I'm working on it, into your club so it becomes a normal part of the language to really open up that vocabulary to openness, to challenge and discovery in your club. All right, timeout's over, back to the lesson. The next part is the reflect. As you look at your steps, Chandra, to reach your goal to compete at the county fair in BB Gun, does it make you excited?
Yes.
Okay. And looking at your steps, do they seem too difficult at all?
Well, maybe the practicing so much is going to be kind of difficult because my mom and dad aren't always available to help me practice. So that might be kind of a difficult step to make happen.
Okay. So you might need to adjust that one as you're trying it out.
Yeah, I probably need to get with them and make a schedule.
Okay. Will these steps challenge you or are they too easy for you?
No, it will be a challenge.
Okay. And the scoring one, are you good with that?
Yeah, I think I can learn how to do that.
Okay. So moving on to applying how this is all going to come together. If you're excited about the steps on your staircase, you have set the right steps for you. If they seem too difficult, what do you need to change to make them a good challenge? So what do you think? If they seem too difficult, what do you need to change to make them a good challenge?
So I think I would just need to talk to the people that I'm going to ask to help teach me, or for example, talk to my parents about when I could practice at home, and talk to my coach about when I'm going to learn how to score or how I need to learn how to do that, or meet with an older 4-H'er. So I think it's a good challenge. I just have to have maybe another step in there.
There you go. You might have to add more steps if they're too difficult or ask for help. So if they seem too easy, what can you do to make your steps more challenging? Like when I think about the ambassador example, to give a speech on the history of 4-H shooting or shooting sports, yeah, kind of easy, right? But what if they made it interactive? They could add a challenge like that. So what do you think? What could you do to make steps more challenging?
I think I could discover more, um, uh, more difficult things to do, and maybe even, for example, on the shooting, maybe I don't just practice, but I have a goal of how many bullseyes I have to hit every time I'm practicing.
There you go. So do you think it's possible to take more than one step at a time or skip some steps?
Yeah, I think the older youth are able to do that because they have longer legs and maybe a broader scope of skills. So they might be able to do more than one step at a time.
Absolutely. I think if I came in as a teenager and I had to start with the BB gun project before I could go to 22 rifle or pistol or to shotgun, I would be kind of frustrated and want to think I could skip some steps. Not the safety, but if I had some rules like that, that might kind of discourage me. Is there another goal you want to reach?
Yeah, my real goal is I want to shoot a small bore rifle, and my parents won't let me do that until I have um proven that I'm safe with the BB gun.
Well, then what I want you to do, because there's room at the top of your worksheet where you can draw a whole nother set as stair steps on the top of that page. And I encourage you to write out the steps that you would need to do in order to have your parents trust you to be able to shoot a 22 rifle, and then share that with your coach and parents so they can discover ways to assist you. What do you think?
I think that's a good idea.
Great. So what I want to do to finish out our time is share what is a goal you have and which step or challenge are you most excited about?
So my goal is to compete at county fair. And the step that I'm most excited about is practicing a lot more, practicing 4 days a week with my club once a week, because I like to shoot and I think practice is going to be really fun.
Great. Thanks for coming tonight. All right, our role play is over now. So you can see how this lesson would play out. You can be doing this lesson in addition to shooting. So when the kids are off the line and they're waiting, you can introduce this right after you do the 4-H pledges to start your practice. And then have them be working on their stair steps, and the adults that are sitting at the back of practice watching, or in the bleachers if you're out at the outdoor range, then they could also be talking and working on this. So when you do this lesson, I highly recommend that you have the parent or guardian that's attending with the youth to be close by to hear what you're talking about when it comes to openness to challenge and discovery. So, question for all of you attending tonight. What is your highlight about this lesson? The best thing you like about it? And what's your insight? Something that you're going to take away or that you learned from the lesson? Please share that in the chat or raise your hand and we will call on you. So, Scott, can I put you on the spot and ask first? Because we don't show Scott this ahead of time, so it should be pretty organic. What are your thoughts, sir?
So highlight is for me is just making sure that we work on, especially with our competitors, setting goals, having them understand or know what are us as instructors knowing what are our participants wanting to accomplish. That's our whole goal, right? Is positive youth development. So what do they want to accomplish? And if we don't know that, we can't help them achieve and to make them the best better. And my insight here would be this sounds a whole lot like a starting them and having them to understand what it takes to put together a shooter's journal or a competitor's journal. That's what I always used to work with my students that wanted to go to nationals. We would journal and we would have our journal workbook that we worked on. So this sounds a lot like where we're heading that direction with this lesson.
Right. I think one of my takeaways in writing this lesson is how easy it was to do and think about for competitors. But for those that are at the base of our pyramid for education, it wasn't as much there for me. And at the recreation in the middle part. So that's kind of my challenge takeaway. And kind of my highlights. I like to challenge myself is to think about what are some examples I can provide for those that are just want the education and those that are enjoying the recreation and not necessarily the competition. And I see that Bob said the not yet thing, right? Like a whole culture of not yet. I love that idea. Chandra, what are you thinking as you're looking at this question?
My favorite part is the not yet thing also, but I love that we can adjust based on skill levels and abilities, and the steps can be adjusted based on the youth themselves, and it's an individual type goal setting that really can help youth see success.
And
Lauren was sure. Go ahead, Scott.
That his highlight is that there is a definite structure of working towards a goal. That you move that process forward. And his takeaway is that the process can be adjusted as needed. that just because it's written down doesn't need to be set in stone, that you can adjust it and make it work. Jane also stated that so when someone is just starting out, they don't even know what they want or need to learn. And you're right. You may not know what that is, and that's your goal as an instructor, to help them through that process.
And I was thinking about that because one of the things that we know from the 80 central elements in 4-H is that to reach independence, so it's belonging, mastery, independence, generosity, that we're trying to reach through the 80 central elements, is in independence. They have to be able to see themselves in the future, in the project, in your club. And part of that comes from introducing them to older youth, to recreational opportunities, competitive opportunities. So I think that's really important point that Jane brought, and that this lesson, you might be teaching over a couple weeks or maybe even a whole BB gun season, especially if you're doing beginners, because they don't know what they don't know yet to know what goal to actually set. But they can do the first couple steps, step 1 and 2 of where they've been, step 3 of where they're at. So then they can start filling in 4 and 5 later. So it says, help me understand what the members want to achieve in our program and how easy it will be the members to understand. Oh, yeah, this will help you understand what the members want to achieve in our program, right? Like the communication that is open by doing these stair steps, I think is huge. And I'm pretty sure that I'm training it with our state ambassadors because I serve as one of the advisors for them. And I think Matt's on tonight, so he's probably like, great, Tammy's gonna have us do the stair steps. Yep. Because even with our ambassadors, it's easy for them to attend our monthly meetings on Zoom, but are they really thinking about where they want to go? And how am I as a coach trying to help them get there? Is that inspiring anything for you for Ambassador Chandra? Did you think about Kansas?
Well, I had another thought that I wanted to share first.
Yeah, go for it.
It is that notice that this stair step, this lesson wasn't meant to be the very first lesson in your very first project meeting. Because you want them to have something to look back on for those first 2 steps that they've already accomplished, so that they aren't starting from the very bottom of the staircase, in that as they're putting the staircase together, they are anyhow at your first project meeting. And so you want them to have accomplished a couple of things so that they can build their staircase upward and see what they've already accomplished. So I really like that about how the lesson is set up. As far as inspiring me, as far as ambassadors go, yeah, I'm sitting here going, I really need to support my new state ambassadors better with their goals and steps that they want to take, and see what they need from me. Basically, just what do you need? How can I help you?
That's awesome. I'd like to thank Chandra and Scott tonight for helping put this program together. One of the great benefits of attending live is you get to stay on after the recording for what's called a second shot, where we discuss everything 4-H shooting sports that is on your mind. So as we get ready to go into second shot, we like to remind you that we will be back in 2024. We'll be sending out a schedule after the holidays, and we look forward to seeing you next time as we put the science and the magic into helping develop champion kids through your Champion 4-H programs. Thanks everybody for attending.